We're still about 200 days from the start of the college football season, but it's never too early to look ahead. There are a lot of great matchups and games that are on the 2024 slate. With conference realignment, schedules are going to look entirely different. For some teams, their schedules are going to get even harder. For some, they might get easier. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the 10 teams with the hardest schedules for 2024. Before we get to today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are that you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. According to 247 Sports, here are the teams with the 10 hardest schedules next season. We'll kick things off at number 10 with Wisconsin. Right off the bat, they have one of the more difficult non-conference matchups in all of college football as they take on Alabama. I guess the silver lining is they do host the Tide, and this could be a different Alabama team considering it's no longer the Nick Saban era. Still, anytime you gotta face Alabama and it's not even a conference game, that's pretty tough. You look at the rest of their schedule, and they come back from the bye by going on the road to take on USC. Fast forward to the end of October, and they host Penn State. Then they go on the road to take on Iowa. After their second bye week, they host Oregon. This is a schedule that likely features 3 top 10 teams in Alabama, Penn State, and Oregon. Plus, the games against USC and Iowa could be top 25 matchups as well. Speaking of USC, they come in ranked number 9, and after a quick glance at the schedule, I don't know how they're ranked number 9. I mean, are you telling me there are 8 other teams that have more difficult schedules? Kicking off the season, USC goes to Vegas, and they take on LSU. Then a couple weeks later, they got to go on the road and take on Michigan, who's coming off a national championship victory. Then a couple weeks later, USC is going to be hosting Penn State. To start November, USC is going to go on the road to take on Washington. The Trojans are going to wrap up their season at home against Notre Dame. I mean, how many top 25 teams is USC going to be facing next year? LSU, Michigan, Penn State, Washington, and Notre Dame at the very minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if teams like Wisconsin, maybe Rutgers, and maybe UCLA are ranked as well at some point next year. If USC struggled this past season with how easy their schedule was, I don't know how they're going to fare in their first season in the Big Ten. We have our first SEC team with Vanderbilt. Their non-conference schedule doesn't look too difficult. I mean, sure, maybe Virginia Tech and Georgia State are going to be a little bit difficult, but they shouldn't be sweating against Alcorn State or Ball State. However, once you get to the SEC slate of the schedule, that's when things get extremely difficult. They open up conference play by going on the road to take on Missouri. Then they come back from the bye and have to take on Alabama. Fast forward a couple weeks, and they're taking on Texas, Auburn, and South Carolina. After their second bye, they wrap things up by going on the road to LSU and hosting Tennessee to close out the season. Yeah, it's probably going to be a long season for the Commodores next year. Staying in the SEC, we have Mississippi State. The reason their schedule is so difficult is because you immediately look at that week 2 matchup as they got to go on the road to take on my Arizona State Sun Devils, and that's going to be by far the most difficult game on their schedule next season. But once they're out of conference play, things only get more difficult for them. They got to play road games at Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, and at Ole Miss. I mean, that is just brutal right there. And then you look at their home games, and they do take on Missouri and Texas A&M as well. I hope Mississippi State enjoys those non-conference games to begin their year, because I don't see too many victories the rest of the way for them. We have our first and only team from the ACC that is featured in today's video. It doesn't help Georgia Tech that they have a non-conference game every year against Georgia. It also doesn't help them that this year they have to go on the road for that game. It also doesn't help that they open up the season against Florida State, a team that probably should have been in the playoff this past year. When looking at the rest of their schedule, there's not really too many games that stand out. Sure, Louisville, Duke, North Carolina, Miami, NC State all could be potentially ranked games, but that's not a certainty. They do play Notre Dame, and that is a neutral site game, so at least they got that going for them. Sure, this could be a schedule that features 5, 6, or maybe even 7 ranked opponents, but outside of Georgia and maybe Florida State, I don't think there's going to be any game here that features a matchup against a team that is ranked inside the top 10 or 15. It's UCLA's first season in the Big Ten, and man, are they in for a rude awakening. They gotta go on the road to take on LSU in their 3rd game of the season. They then begin begin conference play by hosting Oregon and going on the road to Penn State. They then have a 3-week slate at the end of the season in which they host Iowa, go on the road to Washington, and host USC as well. I know I talked about this earlier in the video about how USC is going to struggle in their first year in the Big Ten, but man, if USC struggles, what's going to happen with UCLA? It doesn't help South Carolina that they have a non-conference game against Clemson every year. But you look at who they got to play in the SEC this season, and man, what a gauntlet of a schedule they got ahead. They got to go on the road to Kentucky, host LSU and Ole Miss, go on the road to Alabama and Oklahoma in back-to-back weeks. Then they host Texas A&M and Missouri before ending their season at Clemson. I mean, they have a 3-week stretch where they could be taking on top 10 to 15 opponents, and 2 of those are on the road. All I gotta say is, good luck SEC teams this year. We'll stay in the SEC with Arkansas, and they do have a pretty solid opening matchup as they play UAPB Golden Lions. I think that's the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, at least I'm guessing, so at least they're going to start off their season 1-0, but after that, oh boy. They gotta go on the road the following week to take on Oklahoma State, who might be the best team in the Big 12 next season. They have some likely ranked matchups against Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas. But the thing is, for Arkansas, they get all of those games at home. They do end the season at Missouri, which is a difficult contest, but the fact that they get Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas all at home, that's actually a massive bonus for them. It's actually pretty crazy that over a 6-game stretch, the Razorbacks have only 1 road game, but that's the SEC for you. In Oklahoma's first season in the SEC, they're given the 2nd most difficult schedule in all of college football. When you look at the first half of their schedule, it doesn't look too bad. They have some pretty difficult matchups against Tennessee and Texas. But you look at the second half of their schedule, and man, what a way to finish the season. If you take out the Maine Black Bears, the Sooners finish the year by going on the road to Ole Miss, on the road to Missouri, on the road to LSU, and a home game against Alabama. I mean, talk about welcoming a team to a conference by giving them the hardest slate of any SEC team. Well, I guess I should say the second, because according to 24/7 Sports, the Florida Gators have the most difficult schedule in college football next year. Just looking at their non-conference slate, they got to take on Miami and Florida State, 2 matchups that could be ranked games for them. The rest of their schedule doesn't look too bad, as it features a couple of difficult SEC opponents, but look what they gotta do in November. They start off the month against Georgia, then go on the road to Texas, then host LSU and Ole Miss, and then go on the road to Florida State. That is by far the most difficult 5-game stretch in all of college football next year, and I don't think there's a close second. Even if you take away that difficult 5-game stretch, they still have difficult matchups against Miami, Tennessee, Kentucky, even teams like UCF, Mississippi State, and Texas A&M could be difficult as well. So for the Gators, at least they have that easy win against Samford, because outside of that, I really don't see another easy win on that schedule. So who do you think has the hardest schedule in college football next season? Do you think this top 10 is accurate, or is there a team who has a gauntlet of a schedule that didn't make the list? Whoever it is, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos all off season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.